My name is Douglas Haugen, and I'm here with Dr. Nell Bond from the Ebola Survivor Corps. Nell, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Doug. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So first, before, we're going to talk a little bit about your upcoming work in Sierra Leone, but before we get to that, tell me about your past. Tell me what you're doing, what you specialize in. Give us a little rundown on who you are.
Okay, so I've always been interested in infectious disease, and I did my undergrad in microbiology, pathogenic microbiology, and then I went on to do my PhD at Tulane University in public health and tropical medicine, and so that really piqued my interest further in working internationally. And so my first advisor at Tulane was Dr. Dan Bausch, and he's actually been really big in the news with the Ebola outbreak lately. So he studies viral hemorrhagic fever. So I took a class with Dr. Bausch. It was emerging pathogens, and he really talked about health, not only health and emerging diseases, but also health and human rights. And that really drew me in. And he talks about using research to build capacity in developing countries. And I just thought that was such an amazing thing. I felt like this is something I'm so passionate about, and like this is where I could really work for the rest of my life. So after I took that class with Dr. Bausch, I actually started working in his lab as a student, student worker. And I ended up taking a 2-week course that he and his wife, Frederique, who's also a professor at Tulane, were teaching, and they were teaching it in Sierra Leone. So that was my first trip to Sierra Leone, my first experience in a developing country and in West Africa. And on that 2-week trip, so we went for 2 weeks and did our course, and then everyone, I was a master's student at the time, and so we had to do a practicum, and everyone stayed for the summer and worked on their practicum. And my practicum was working in the villages, trapping rats that transmit Lassa fever. And so it also brought in the whole viral hemorrhagic fever interest and working in Sierra Leone. So that's really where I fell in love with Sierra Leone. And then, so after doing that course, I finished up my coursework and everything, and I started working with my PhD mentor, Preston Marks, who has a long history of working in Sierra Leone. And that's part of why I wanted to work with him, because I knew that I really wanted to go back to West Africa. And so then through my PhD work, I was working in northern Sierra Leone in Kabbalah, which is where we're going to be, where we're, as Ebola Survivor Corps, are going to be located out of. And so this gives me a chance to really give back through the contacts that I have there who are working in the healthcare system. So I think it's a really nice connection between what I've done in the past and moving to work with Ebola Survivor Corps and really making that something successful.
Great. So how did you get involved with the Ebola Survivor Corps?
So actually, I saw my friend Andrew Bennett, who's on the design team. He posted a thing on Facebook he shared the Ebola Survivor Corps page and asked people to donate because it was during the Indiegogo campaign and everything. So I went and looked at the website, and I said, this is amazing, and it sounds like exactly something I would want to be doing, and they're working in a place where I've worked in the past. So I reached out to Andrew, and I just said, hey, look, I love the idea, I think it's great, and I worked in Kabbalah, so anyone I can put you in touch with, I would love to do so. And so then he came back to me, and he was like, oh, right, you work there, let's definitely put you in touch with Sarah, the director, and see how we can get you involved.
Awesome. So right now things have changed quite a bit with the Ebola outbreak situation. It's not quite as bad as it used to be, although of course there's still an Ebola problem. What's the Ebola Survivor Corps' focus going to be in Sierra Leone now that the case count has lowered, although not gone down to a 0 case count?
Well, so I think our main focus is going to be really trying to prepare for future outbreaks and trying to get the education out there in the community about what people need to do if Ebola comes back, because like you were saying, the case count is down, but it's not over. So this current outbreak has potential to resurge. But even if that gets cleared, which we're hoping will happen, there is the potential for outbreaks in the future. So we want people to be ready. So there's preparing for Ebola in the future. We also want to have our survivors be trained to work along with community health workers to do more infection control training in general, or education rather, in the community so that they can access healthcare better, in a more, like, facilitate the access of healthcare for community members, so that the other diseases that happen and that run rampant in West Africa can be taken care of, like malaria and HIV and other infectious diseases. And then we also want to use this training for the survivors to sort of elevate their social status, because as we've been seeing in the media, there's a lot of stigma associated with surviving or having Ebola. And so we want to reduce that for the survivors and sort of have them be able to say, look, I'm special because I survived. There's something special about me. And another thing that we want to do through this training is help provide psychosocial support for the survivors. So allow them to tell their stories and be able to move forward with it and just like share the experience that they had. So those are the main focuses of what we're trying to do.
There definitely, I've read a lot about there being a stigma, and one of those stigmas are just people not being able to get employment because of the stigma. So Ebola Survivor Corps is going to be actually employing people to be these community health workers. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly correct. And that's something that we think will also, it'll provide employment for them, and it also will elevate their status in the community because they'll be someone who is being paid a decent wage to do this kind of work and be sort of a point person in the community that other people can go to for information while getting paid for this. So I think that's another really important aspect of what we're trying to do, in Sierra Leone.
So you're leaving this Friday, is that right?
Yeah, I am. I'm really excited.
So what has preparation been like? What have you been up to get ready for this trip?
So prep has been pretty crazy. It's a little less crazy because I've done it before, so I sort of know what I have to do. And also a little bit less crazy because in my previous work, I would have to bring trunks and trunks of research supplies. So this time I'm bringing things like Ebola Survivor Corps t-shirts and some office supplies like clipboards and notebooks and pens. We got a computer for our project manager, so I'm bringing that along. Sort of things like that. So it shouldn't be too insane on that front. But on top of that, there's also sort of like practical life things that you have to do, like go get all your vaccinations. And again, I've had a lot of those because I've been before, but I did have to, go through the whole process again and get some boosters on a few things. And of course, like getting your malaria meds and everything, which is always kind of an ordeal. Let's see, what else have I been doing to prepare? Another huge thing in preparation is we've been really working on tailoring, figuring out our trainings. We're actually going to have two groups come and help out with the infection control training and with the social mobilization training. One is a team of really experienced outreach workers, or an outreach worker and a nurse from Kenema in Sierra Leone, and also people from the West African Medical Missions group, and they're going to do the social mobilization training. So the Kenema folks are going to do the infection control, and the WAM people are going to do the social mobilization. And I think it's going to be really awesome training, especially because it's going to be done by Sierra Leoneans. So they'll have all of like the cultural, it'll be culturally specific to the people that they're training. So I think that'll be really good for us.
What's the first thing you're going to do when you hit the ground in Sierra Leone?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the first week, the first thing I'm going to do is be extremely exhausted because I've been traveling for like 30 hours. But our project manager actually has arranged a vehicle. So he's going to come and pick me up at the airport, which is great. We'll go up to Kabbalah, and then that first week, I think we're going to spend like really seeing who the players are around the area, like who's working on Ebola response, what they're doing now, also who's working with survivors and what they're doing with survivors. And what I've heard is there are people that are working with survivors, but they're doing something really different than what Ebola Survivor Corps is trying to do. So what people are doing currently in Kabbalah is they're providing services. So they're trying to provide healthcare services for survivors, trying to provide food, because as you mentioned before, it's really hard for survivors to find employment. So then it's hard for them to pay for food and things like that. And then providing like clothes and other things that they may have lost during the disinfection process. Because during disinfection, they destroy a lot of an Ebola patients' belongings. So we're going to find out what everybody's doing in the district and how we can help them, how they can help us, and just sort of like meeting everyone who's around. And then I think the next week we're going to start going out into the field and identifying the survivors that we want to work with. I'm sure in the first week we'll try and locate those survivors. And there is a survivors organization in Koinadugu that has a spokesperson and everything. So we're going to go meet with him and try and like get an idea of where we should angle ourselves to find the right people to work with us.
There's obviously plenty of survivors from all walks of life in Sierra Leone. What specific character traits are you looking for in survivors who will become a member of the Ebola Survivor Corps?
Well, there are a lot of things. I mean, one thing that's like kind of we want someone who's really passionate about giving back to their community and passionate about things like connecting community members, being a bridge between community members and the district healthcare system. So we think that's really important. And we also want someone who's really interested in providing psychosocial support for their for their co-survivors, for other survivors in their community. Because of the stigma, it can be really hard to find that. You can be very isolated. So we want people who are really passionate about our vision and what we're trying to do. Another thing that's like very, very key that you might not think about in the US is we need to find people who are literate, which can be really difficult actually in Koinadugu because it's so rural and there's such a difficulty with education. But I'm confident that we can do it. And I think we also would maybe try and like initially focus on if there are any nurses that had Ebola and survived, because they would already have that knowledge about about infectious disease and about infection control. So I think that might be a route that we would try and go. But I think really the main thing is trying to find people who are really passionate about what we're doing.
So literacy is something that we don't think about in the States, and actually I hadn't thought about before you just said it. As the Ebola Survivor Corps sets up community outreach and mobilization efforts, in the United States, a lot of that is handing out pamphlets and putting posters on the wall. What does community mobilization efforts look like in an area where literacy is a problem? Yeah,
so that's a really good question. And actually, so they've done this with really well with a lot of infectious diseases in places like West Africa, where your educational materials have to have an illustrative component, so you do like illustrations of what people should be doing, so they'll show for Ebola symptoms, they'll have someone with like red eyes and like vomiting and diarrhea and all of the other things that go along with this, and they say if you do that, then like the next image is take this person, showing someone bringing that person to a public health unit, or like contacting a public health unit, whatever the steps may be for that disease. So illustrations are really important. And we've actually considered that for the Ebola Survivor Corps training materials that we'll give our survivors to take out into the community. And there are already like validated Ebola education materials out there. So we're gonna use something that we know already works. I'm really excited also to go back and like work with a community that I've worked with in the past. I'm really excited about that. Like since I last was there, 2 of my friends have had babies. And so I'm so excited to go and like meet their new families and like just see all the people in this community that I care about so much. So I'm really pumped about that on top of everything else.
That all sounds really amazing, Nell, and I wish you the best of luck. I thank you so much for spending time with us today to explain this to not only us, but all the people that have interacted with the Ebola Survivor Corps in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for having me, Doug. I'm really, really excited to get this project off the ground, and I'll be in touch with you while I'm there and hopefully give some updates about what's going on.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
All right, have a great day now.
All right, thanks, you too. Bye.